Hello everyone and welcome once again to Middle Earth HR's Knowledge Center. In this video, we're going to be talking about something which many people have asked me time and again, sometimes with frustration, sometimes with anger, and sometimes with sheer exasperation. What does the CEO really want from L&D? That's $1 million question. So in this edition, we'll be talking about some of the key factors which are contributing to the changes in the expectation of the CEO from the L&D. So let us see, what does the CEO really want? What's on his or her mind? Well, the first thing that the CEO is today looking at, has always looked at, but it has never been more important, is to increase productivity. You have to increase productivity because, as you know, number crunching has become the name of the game. People who can adjust, people who can grow, people who can continue being productive are the ones who are going to stay in the business. Now, what does that mean to the L&D? CEOs have found, and research has shown through multiple agencies, that high-performing learning organizations are seeing a 24% increase in productivity and performance. So people have been seeing a change in companies, a change in growth, and the change in cultures, a change in teamwork, when it comes to linking productivity with learning. So today's CEO is not just looking at L&D as something that we keep doing for the sake of doing. They're seeing growth and productivity happening through L&D, and 24% is a huge number. What is the other thing which troubles CEOs? Well, it's people. Finding, developing, and retaining talent. That is one of the biggest issues which all CEOs globally are facing. It's a number one priority. 77% of the CEOs are concerned that the key skill shortage is going to impair the growth of their organizations. So they might have a lot of people, but the quality of people is going to be critical for any company to grow. So what's the problem? Why is it so difficult to find really good people? There's a huge amount of pressure on L&D today. And I'll tell you why. One of the most important things is the changing nature of the workforce. 85% of the jobs that will exist in 2030 have yet to be developed, and this is according to Dell Technologies. 85% of the jobs? What does that mean? That means the entire workforce has to be completely retrained. Whatever we know today is not going to make much sense tomorrow. The half-life of learned skills is now only 5%, and that is according to research with Deloitte. What does that mean? That means whatever we learned 10 years ago is completely out of sync. We have absolutely no need for those skills. And what we learned 5 years ago is only partially useful. It's only half useful. This is what the half-life means. So what does that mean? That means most of us are going to be outdated in terms of skills before we know it. And that's a pretty scary thought, I would say. With the fierce competition, the crucial time to competence is getting shorter and shorter, which means, we grew up thinking that we had all the time in the world to develop our skills, our, technologies, and think of things, and, today it's not like that. You have to keep growing and growing and learning, because if you don't do it, you're going to be outdated, chucked out, absolutely have no relevance. Now for L&D, it's a very huge task. One, new jobs are being created every second day. The new areas which are being developed, new technologies which are coming up. Blended learning has come up. New business words keep coming up. So for L&D to keep the organization in touch and in sync with the changing times is a huge, huge job. So let's look at what Dell Technologies says about this. They said, knowledge is changing. The pace of change is so rapid that the ability to gain knowledge will become more valuable than the knowledge itself. What a profound statement. the ability to gain the knowledge is much more important than the knowledge itself. For L&D, it's going to be really, really a tough challenge to actually keep not just themselves keep in pace, but also keep the entire organizations keep in pace with this. Can we actually beat the stress? What is it that we need to do to beat the stress? CEOs today expect a lot out of L&D. They expect L&D to understand strategy. Now, strategy was normally out of the domain of most of the HR, most of L&D. It was a part of it, but not the whole thing. But today, we are looking at L&D being completely in sync with the CEO's vision, the CEO's strategic plan. You're not only just aware of the strategy, you have to convert it into action points. You should be able to measure it. You should be able to have behavioral indicators for whatever you have planned. You should be able to link it up to processes. So understanding strategy is something which is so critical for L&D. Now the second thing we look at is creating L&D processes which will lead up to strategy. So if there's going to be any training which is happening, you have to link it up to the business plan of the organization. If you're saying that there's going to be an ROI for this training, you should be able to link it up in real terms, not in terms of it would have been nice and I'm sure it was good, but actually linking it up to the strategic plan and having an ROI attached to it. The third, of course, and we've talked about it enough in so many other videos, is talking in numbers. Today is a day of metrics. If you can't talk metrics, you have no business to be in a strategic position like this. You have to be agile. You have to be looking at taking up changes within the organization, within the company, within the entire environment, and adapting the organization. For that, you have to be agile. You can't be expecting the organization to be agile if you're not going to be agile. So you should be ready to take up all the challenges, keep yourself updated with the latest trends, study as much as you can, because agility ultimately is adapting through knowledge, through practice. We have to understand technology. What are the various options that are available? Because every day something new is coming up. You have to be ready to work with experts in the field. We don't have the time to become experts ourselves all the time. Though it's very nice to feel that, but honestly, you have to work with experts to understand what are the latest things that are happening in the field. So if this is what the CEO wants, what is the say of the people who are working in organizations? Are they okay with the changes? Are they okay to work with organizations which are going to demand them to keep changing, to keep learning? So employees have a very, very interesting thing to say over here, and this is something which is going to hold you in good stead. 94% of the employees said that they would stay with the company longer if the company invested in their learning, in their career development. So talent, if properly grown, can be retained. So in a way, that's really good. 94% is a very huge number, which means the attitude of the people is very good for this. It has become almost like a normal thing for them to want to study, to want to learn. The whole attitude earlier, or sometimes we have seen that it's like, okay, I'm fine, I don't want to learn anymore. People realize if you don't learn, you're not going to be in the market anymore. So the opportunity is somewhat like this. Today's knowledge worker is motivated to keep on learning, looking for career opportunities. It is more about self-development, business development, learning different kinds of things. And if you look at it, 73% of the adults consider themselves to be lifelong learners. The whole concept that we had earlier, which was, okay, I'm going to study, go through college and then I'm going to start working and that's the end of my education. Today, people don't say that anymore. It's a lifelong commitment that you have. 63% of the working adults consider themselves to be professional learners, which means whenever they see a gap in their skill set, the professional skill set, they are willing to invest in it and go ahead and learn. So I think the self-image of people, the way people perceive themselves, has changed so much that to take them along this journey of L&D, of change, is not going to be that difficult. Because ultimately workers are looking at their employers to support them in their dream life, in their learning, in their education. The fact is, there's going to be no auto rewind to the earlier days that you could sit back and say things are fine and we will do these courses, or we can take the easy. There is going to be no auto rewind. It's just going to be tougher and tougher. The change that we're looking at is here to stay. Not for a few days, but forever. It's going to get even more tough. The only way to survive is to just seize the opportunity and take everything along with it. You have to build your skills. You have to look at seeing, before you can build an organization, you have to start looking at yourself. What is it that you need to learn to be a lifelong learner? What is it that you need to be really good at to be a true L&D professional of this day and age? You have to understand strategy. I told you this. You have to understand strategy. You can't just be talking about team building and team working and communication. We are looking at hard-headed strategy. You have to get over a grip over the numbers. As I said, metrics is the key. You can't talk fluff anymore. You should be able to correlate performance with competencies. So if you have a competency map and you give training to somebody, you should be able to correlate that growth in a particular area of competency has actually led to improved performance. You should be able to see the direct link of L&D with OD. You should be able to see the linking between L&D and OD. It's very, very critical, because you can't just look at an organization in silos or in departments as not working together. You should be able to understand the entire organization from a more holistic angle. You should be a master of psychometrics. You should understand what makes people tick, because ultimately they are the biggest asset. As I said, be on top of all technology, all the e-learning solutions. What are the various things that keep coming up in the market? It's not just e-learning. Any kind of technology, the way things are changing, you have to be on top of it. And then the most important, learn from the experts. Work with them. So, what does the CEO really want? That was a question that we started off with, and the answer is very, very simple. The CEO is not looking for an L&D manager at all. The CEO is actually looking for a person like him or herself. Wants an L&D manager to think like a CEO, to think business, to think numbers, to think new things, to be able to help the CEO develop the organization arm in arm. And with that, we come to the end of this Learning Bite. I hope you enjoyed it. But don't forget to like our channel, subscribe, and put in your comments. We are really happy that you've come up with so many different requirements. We are working on them, and we're going to come up with even better videos about topics that have interested you so much. Thank you so much, and we shall see you soon.